Shelly Starks is president and CEO of Inline Consulting Services, LLC. Her mission is to help small businesses overcome internal and external communication barriers with clear and concise tools that align with the organization's vision to position them for scalable growth. Welcome to the stage, Shelly.
Thank you, Jason. I am thrilled to be here. It's nice to meet all of you. Clint, I appreciate, and I mentioned something in the chat box how this is just a perfect aligned speaking topic for you because you already have shown that you can be that conscious leader, even just to your family. So I commend you, and that was a really touching story, and I appreciate you sharing. Crystal, it's always amazing to talk to you and hear you talk. And you just have, almost like a healing space that comes out of you just when your words are being spoken. And so I love that you have, shared your story and how, you're going to touch a lot of different people with that story. So I'm so thrilled that I was able to connect you with Jason. I just knew that, and it gives me goosebumps right now because it made me maybe like I knew there were people out there that just really needed to hear her story. So thank you, Jason, for having me. And I am excited to hear from some of the other speakers as well. So I actually am going to start by telling a little bit about my mental health journey as it related to something that happened to me physically. In October of 2022, that changed my life forever. I was 45 years old. I had 27 surgeries at that point in my life, 16 of which had been breast surgeries because I had had breast cancer at 26. And it was just an ongoing, constant struggle. And then 8 of those surgeries were on or around my uterus and ovaries, leaving me in that October of 2022 time period with one ovary and another mass the size of a grapefruit on the other ovary. And so when we were discussing removing it, when the doctor decided, okay, we need to be a little bit more aggressive. You have already had your children. You're not planning to have more. This is just causing more issues than it's helping. And we just need to get everything out. So we're going to do a radical hysterectomy. And for those of you that don't know what a radical hysterectomy is, it is when you remove all of your female reproductive organs, including your ovaries, which happen to be the main hormone regulating organ in your body. And when you don't have those hormones in your body, there are lots of things that happen mentally, physically, emotionally, and believe it or not, spiritually, that kind of pull you under in the undertow that sometimes seems impossible to be able to pull yourself out of. So when we do this surgery, in October, I wake up from anesthesia to not fully really understand the mental and emotional, physical side that I'm about to embark on. They try to prepare you and tell you what's going to happen. But until you have this happen to you, there's just no way for you to know what this feels like. I literally was thrown off the cliff into full-blown menopause. And menopause typically in women that are aging out happens at a gradual pace. And so therefore they get some things that continue to happen and they deal with them and figure out how to handle those and take supplements to handle them or do hormone replacement therapy to handle them. But it really does not do it justice just to say that it all happened at one time. And so for me, this was the biggest test of my life. And the next 4 months really ended up being filled with extensive genetic testing to understand my risks of taking hormone replacement therapy and having had breast cancer. There's a lot of awareness out there that needs to come, in my opinion, for women who are going through menopause. They tell you that you can get breast cancer from this hormone replacement therapy, but what they don't tell you is the other cancers your body will grow if you don't have hormone balance. And so it's really, really important. I'm wanting to help educate some women out there, especially in the menopause space, because it was a really tough time for me. And really experiencing the mental, emotional, and physical aspects of that. My body felt like I was 30 years older overnight. Aches and pains and sharp pains and things I had never felt before. You go and you do a workout you haven't done in a while and you wake up in the next morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that muscle existed. Imagine that from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And so it was just overwhelming physically. And then the mental side, I was really foggy because when you have this happen, there's a lot of things chemically that are happening internally that they're not easily explained. I'm an overachiever. And I have had businesses throughout my life. My parents own businesses, and I am a go-getter. And so when I can't do a million things at one time, juggle a million things at one time, and have the mental clarity to do that, that was crippling for me from not just a mental perspective, but from an emotional perspective. And if you are somebody who finds yourself to be out in front and coaching and helping other people when you can't even get yourself out of bed, that's a problem. You cannot help, just like Crystal was talking about. If you can't get yourself in a place to be able to help you, you're not going to be good to help other people. So those emotions that came with all of that, that hormone surge or drop off the cliff was like being a teenager again, but 1,000 times worse. And I would cry in the Publix aisle, and people would look at me like I was crazy. I'd have to turn off my Zoom call and executive leadership meetings, and because I'd start crying for absolutely no reason. I was a complete mess. So after months of that genetic testing and understanding my risks, I made a decision to move forward with that hormone replacement therapy because my quality of life, quite frankly, was not livable. It just wasn't livable. And so I started doing anything and everything that I could to make myself feel good, even if it was just something super small. So the people that know me know that I love my plants. They call me the plant lady. And so we just moved houses, and it took us a 26-foot truck, a U-Haul truck. We took 2 trips with my plants. Okay. So just to give you a little idea of how many plants I have. So I enjoy gardening, and I enjoy gardening with no shoes on. I love being out and really grounding is what I call it, and just helps me reset my electrical system. And I feel like I'm connected with nature, and it really just, gives me a different feeling inside. So I love to do that. I'm that crazy lady with mud all over my feet while I'm planting my plants. But I would go out and do that, or I would go and, sit with my laptop and put my feet in the grass and work instead of being in my office. So these tiny, tiny little things, I had to do a bunch of those because, as Crystal said, that was the thing that brought me joy in that moment. It's not the thing that sustained me for the day. But then I just have to jump from one thing to the next to the next. Maybe I go and walk on the beach barefooted, listen to some soothing music, take some deep breaths in the salty air, and imagine that those waves are washing all of that pain and all of those feelings away, try to do some visualization. So that was a really, really tough time. And I'm not a crier. I'm not a crier at all. But crying every day was an everyday occurrence in this situation. And somebody who just normally doesn't cry, it shook me to my core. And you can imagine what it did to my family, right? My family was like, we do not know who mom is. We don't know what's happening. And we can't explain it to them. And I couldn't because I was not in a place to understand it myself. So how do you explain it, right? So all of that started making me question what made me happy in life, what brought me joy. And of course, leave it to a physical trauma to wake you up or create an awareness that you were not ready for, right? But how you're living your life and what you're doing, is it all authentically you? Are you moving and offering the world the thing that you were meant here to offer? And it doesn't need to be forced, like Crystal was talking about. What are you here to offer? What feels really good when you do something, right? If you help somebody, at your church, or if you help somebody in your neighborhood and that really brings you a lot of joy, maybe you should do it a little more often. Like get out there and let that be a spark that gets you rolling for the day or for your week. And when I ask myself these questions, like, am I doing the thing that's authentically me and that I think brings me joy? It was a resounding no. So here I was at an age where I had had multiple careers. I had had different fields that I'd worked in. I'm not a linear career path person. I'm finding out that that's okay because that's just really not who I'm meant to be. And I have a lot of skill sets from a lot of different things. But I came to the realization that just because you're good at something does not mean you should do it. And just because you make money at it and you make a lot of money on it does not mean you should do it, because there's more important things in life, right? It's time to like reconsider what that looks like. And so I started attacking my belief system because, and Crystal, you and I didn't talk about this, but right in my notes, the belief system I'm going to talk about today was that you have to work hard to be successful. And I was born and raised in Texas. Hello, fellow Texan Clint. And and I literally was born. I mean, we're in the Bible Belt. My mom was a children's pastor, so I was a PT kid. I was all, PK kid. I was always in church, and my mom was a driven businesswoman. And so all of that accumulates together. She was like my rock star superhero, right? Like that's what I was supposed to do. And she worked herself to the bone, right? To care for our family. And so that was ingrained in me as though it were my DNA. And so when I had this shake me to the core with all of this physical and mental and emotional and spiritual stuff happen at one time, I started questioning beliefs like that. And I thought, you know what? I have friends that at this age don't appear to be working as hard as I'm working, and they are way more successful. How is that happening? Right. And then so I thought, I need to actually reach out to some of these people and start asking them like what made you successful? Where did that come from? Start asking them what happened. And a resounding repetitive thing that kept happening was they thought outside the box, they found passive income, and they were actually duplicating themselves with technology as opposed to actually physically being in the space every single time. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. I think I could probably do that, right? At some point. And that was a huge part for me to be able to understand, okay, I'm smart enough to be able to figure this out. So as part of that awakening process, I reached out to one of my dear friends, Griselle Scarantino. She is a career coach. And I asked her if I could go through her 90-day career coaching program. And I will tell you right now, it was absolutely life-changing. All the things I told her I do not want to do when we first started the 90 days, guess what I'm doing? All those things, right? Life changing, because it showed me where she had tools and ways to help me identify and discover that I actually have passions in areas that I'm not using that light me up. And sometimes you just need a professional person to point that out for you, the mirror that Crystal was talking about, maybe even in a professional setting. And at the end of that 90 days, not only had I gotten to a point of being able to figure out a balance for my hormones, so I was starting to feel a little better, but I had a clear vision on what I wanted to do for this next phase of my life. And I knew I had been coaching for over 20 years, I've been a behavioral analysis coach. And I have been coaching people in 3 different businesses. This is my 3rd business. And I could do sales coaching, I could do leadership coaching, I could do conflict resolution, I could do all those things, but I didn't want to. It's the thing I didn't want to do that I discovered, which was really, really key. Everybody focuses on the thing you want to do. I focused on what I didn't want to do so that I could really figure out what I do, and not the things I'm supposed to do or that other people tell me I'm supposed to do because I'm good at them. My mom's really good at that. She actually still at this age still tells me, you will do this or you will do that. I realized it when I was 32. It took me until I was 32 to figure out that she lives in Texas and I live in Florida, and she may not even know. Like, I don't have to tell her, right? Mom, if you watch this, I'm sorry. That was a real thing. Anyway, so I spent a bunch of time figuring out what I wanted for my business. And I now am up to 8 revenue streams in this business, and I am really living my purpose. And I spent a lot of time feeding my soul. That's the part that was really important. I need to get in and have a journey with me, like Crystal said. I needed to connect with God. I needed to connect with the things that the universe was sending me. I needed to connect with nature more, because that is me. That is the essence of who I am. And that's what drives what I put out to the world. That's what I give to people, is something that I get charged with, and it lights me up, and I can now share from something that's not an empty bucket, right? And so I began to understand that that mental and physical and emotional and spiritual health, all of that really, really mattered. And I needed to focus on finding me in that journey and really, really save myself is really what was happening. And I never say that I've arrived, that there's always going to be a lot of work that has to be done. It's a continual process. And I'm on this journey. I call it a journey because it really is a journey. It's not about a destination. And so I think what I'll do is I'll leave you with three key discoveries that I made during this journey in hopes that maybe it will help you or one of the listeners or even someone that you love that you're caring for. The first one is find something that lights you up and do it a little bit every day. Doesn't have to be your main job. Just do it a little bit. It's going to feed your soul like no other. Two, make a list of your core beliefs. You may not be ready for this, but make a list of those core beliefs and spend some time asking yourself a couple of questions. Why do I believe this? Is it because that's how I was raised? Is that what my parents believed? Am I just having this by proxy? Is it because I experienced something that happened to me that was negative or even positive that is no longer relevant, but I still believe that? Are you really living your true core of who you are or your belief system? Are you really aligned with what you want in your life with that belief system? Because if it's not in alignment with it, it's never going to actualize in your life. You have to be intentional about what it is that you believe. Beliefs are interesting, right? A belief is something that you actually, a new behavior that you do over and over and over again that starts to get some different results, right? So then you start seeing those results and you're like, oh, I think I actually think this might actually be something I can do over and over again. So you start doing it and you do it continually until all of a sudden it becomes a new belief and you don't even think about it. It's autopilot, right? Those autopilot beliefs are little foxes in your vines. They're going to come in and they can steal that joy from you because you're not realizing, oh, that's a belief that's so deep down in my being that I didn't even know it was influencing everything that's on the surface of me. And then the third thing is that I do really believe in changing the tape that's in your head. And changing that tape can mean, like to Crystal's point, she mentioned that she didn't even know how to love herself. You have to start somewhere. And although I don't believe affirmations are the end all be all to things, I think it's a good place to start changing your tape that's in your mind. So I use I am affirmations because I believe that there are some things that I need to feel and believe wholeheartedly. And when you are truly doing what you feel like you're meant to do in your life, when you say an I am affirmation with that, you have to have the confidence that it already exists. And then you have to do your very best to feel every sense, all senses that you have that would come with that if it already existed in your life. It takes a lot of work. So a couple that I use are I am living an abundant life. Now, abundance doesn't necessarily mean money. I want an abundant life because I want to be able to bless other people in more ways than just with money. I am healthy because this is a really important thing from my story. That many surgeries, that much trauma to my body, I need to speak life back into my body every single day. I am healthy. Clint, you'll like this one. I have it. I am brave because bravery is something that I really have to have every single day. Otherwise, I can get overwhelmed and scared that something else physical is going to try to take over my body. And I can't let myself do that. I have enough history for my mind to tell me that I have other things coming physically, right? But I refuse to go there. I am healthy and I am brave. I am peace and I am balanced. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate you listening.